Just a friendly reminder that the opinions expressed on this show are not worth a Canadian penny, so disregard anything you hear that might get anyone in trouble. And despite some of the great ideas you may hear, don't try them at home. Go to a friend's house instead.
It's time to get a gun. That's what I've been thinking. Well, I could afford one. And if I did just a little less drinking, time to put something between me and the sun. When the talking is over, it's time to get a gun.
Hello and welcome to Slamfire Radio for episode 303 British. For May 9th, 2019, I am one of your hosts, Trevor.
And I'm another one, Adriel.
And the other two are, they hate Milsurps and they hate the listeners and they hate the Swiss. So they thought what's the point, really?
And they got rim lock on the one on dry over here.
Yeah, and you know why they got rim lock? Out of spec tires or wheels or rims.
Yeah. Not to spec, poor commercial quality stuff.
Definitely. Yeah. So since they're not here, we can get right to it and talk about what we did this week in guns. And what we did this week in guns is brought to you by the Calgary Shooting Center, Canada's premier firearms retailer. This week, they've got something really exciting on the go. If you were after a custom factory rifle, like a rifle that's been taken and, basically loved by a gunsmith in every way you can imagine, just every way. That's what they're doing. They are taking Tikkas and they're doing amazing things to them. Let me walk you through here some of the jobs that they're doing to the Tikkas. So first up, they take a Tikka T3X chambered in 22-250, and here's what they're doing. They're starting with a Boyd stock. They're doing pillar bedding, threading the muzzle, putting a target crown on the gun. Then they're installing a Badger ordnance brake. They're squaring off the barrel, the receiver, and the bolt. They're lapping the bolt to make that action silky smooth. Then they're installing a new oversized recoil lug, Timney triggers, worn scope ring or scope rail, and recoil pin. The bore is also lapped. The chamber is polished, half MOA with Hornady Superformance factory ammo on that particular gun. Like, come on. And it's really cheap too. It's only $3,500. So, you take a Tikka and you turn it into just like Tikkas are already amazing. But if all those little bucket list items that you wish you could do, well, now they're all done for you.
Like a semi-custom Tikka build.
Yeah, exactly. And then they've got the T3X in 223, all the same love made to it, only a lot cheaper, $3,000. So you're saving $500 if you go to the superior caliber of 223. But I'm a little biased. What are you going to do? So head on over to the Calgary Shooting Center website to check those out. You can also actually see the guns if you go to Canada Gun Nuts and go to the forums and look up the Calgary Shooting Center's forum over there under the dealer network and check those out. And of course, tell Jeff we said hi. So that takes us to what we did. And I went to a match in Woodstock. It was the first outdoor IPSC New Brunswick match of the season. It took place, as I said, in Woodstock. McClatchy was able to join me on Saturday to help build some stages. And Sunday, he was in my squad, and we shot together. It was a lot of fun. But before all of that, I got to finally test drive this. My CZ P10 FF being full size. It's everything I thought it would be and more. The listeners who have been with us a long time know how much I love the FNS line of pistols. Still love them. Still awesome. Only they're a bag of crap compared to this thing. I don't use
They're awesome, except they're kind of a bag of crap.
Compared to this thing, they are a bag of crap. This is the Glock killer. It has awesome.
And you're holding up your P10F. That's the full.
I am.
Not only is that full size, you've got like extra room under your pinky on that grip.
It's made for men, right? It really, not that ladies can't use it. Don't send me the hate mail. A bunch of social justice. Anyway,
like a baseball bat grip on that thing. If you had full hands.
If I was the opposite of Alain, who's missing fingers and had all my fingers plus one, I'd have room for the extra finger on my gun, right? So, you know what else is cool? They're compatible with Glock holsters. Now, not all Glock holsters. Your mileage may vary, but if you get an LHS Kydex Glock holster, no problem, fits right in. I have here my Concealment Solutions. They're out of Utah. They used to be really tight with the gun dudes back in the day, and this is the I don't remember what this one's called. It's not the Sidewinder, the Mamba. It's a inside the waistband holster by Jason Christensen for the Glock. And check this out. Snap! Oh, damn, look at that. Fits like a glove. Other Kydex holsters also fit like a glove. So I ordered, you ready for this? A Red Hill Tactical. Red Hill Tactical holsters are amazing. They're Kydex. They're thick Kydex, multiple layers, customizable, all kinds of amazing features. However, they ain't cheap. They ain't cheap. And the dollar's killing us right now. $140. Whoa. And that's without a hanger or nothing. That's just the Kydex shell.
That's just a Kydex holster too. I was looking at the double Alpha X, and I think that was $200-300, something like that.
Really?
When you think about $150 for a Kydex. Now, did you get the hanger and all that cool stuff?
No, dude, nothing. That's black on black, $140.
Woo! Oh,
yep. Spicy. Yep. Not for hobos.
Or Canadian? 140 Canadian?
Canadian.
Whoa, that's still.
Yeah, for a piece of Kydex.
Oh, yeah, it's custom molded.
It's custom. It's made with love. Yeah,
made with love. But
back to the gun. So the gun has cocking serrations front and back. The front sight is held in with a dovetail and a set screw. The rear sight's dovetail set screw. You can swap those out. Already in stock at the Calgary Shooting Center right now. If you've got the P version of this gun, the C version of this gun, the compact, right? It's compact like Glock 19 size. It's got the threaded barrel coming out the front. Of course, it's got the really silly suppressor sights. Well, the Calgary Shooting Center has Trigicon night sights to replace those that are the normal height, so you don't look like your sights are satellite dishes or antennas. So, but these sights worked really good in the daytime. They're a day glow. They look white in here, but when I got out in the sun, they were like glowing kind of a greenish kind of color. They've got the step on the back, so you can cock it off a table or off your belt or whatever. Along with the front and rear cocking serrations, you have ambidextrous slide stop, a reversible magazine well, all standard rate. The stippling is insane. Can you lock the camera here for those that are watching us?
Yeah, 1 second. Locked.
So let me get some good light on here. Look at that stippling, man. Like this would hurt Tom Nelson's hands. That's an old joke from back in the day.
My bar for like super aggressive stippling is the FNS. Is it more or less? And the FNS, if you grip it hard, it hurts your hand. Is it that level or?
I'd say it's that level. Like look at my fingers. Mm-hmm. Look at my hand. You can see all the imprint in my hand.
Yeah, that's what the FNS would do.
Yeah. It feels like the quality of the polymer feels it's stiffer or harder, if that makes sense. Like if you squeeze the FNS kind of, like a man, you might flex the grip a little bit, kind of like an MMP as well. This one, not so much. The takedown, same as a Glock. You got these two takedown tabs here. You pull down, you pull back on the slide, let it go forward, and boom. It's exactly like a Glock. And then, of course, everybody's seen how you remove the barrel from one of these. If you haven't, there's a bazillion YouTube videos. I want to show you how. All right. Ooh, cat hair. I've yet to completely detail strip it. I used to do that right away with new guns to see how intuitive it was to completely disassemble them and reassemble them. When I started working at a gunsmith, I got over that really fast. Now I don't take nothing apart unless I have to. Trigger, talked about, is amazing. And it seems like it's getting even better after shooting, right? Breaking in. Not unlike the FNS. The FNS trigger is, a lot of people absolutely hate it. It's not the best trigger, not going to lie, but it's workable, whatever. But this thing is excellent right out of the box. You don't have to worry about it being workable or getting better. It's already good and will continue to get better as the gun breaks in.
What do you put the weight at?
You know what? I don't know, Adriel, but when you're talking later to the listeners, I'll get up and get my digital trigger scale and I'll test it because it's literally 5 feet from me. So I'm so impressed with the gun. I put 20 rounds to it and I immediately sent Jeff Reese a copy of my credit card and said, give me the compact.
Yeah, you said you're going to buy the compact after shooting that thing. I thought maybe like you figured out the grip was too big and you wanted something smaller.
No, see, I had both the FNs. I had the FN, FNS long slide, and the regular one.
Hmm.
And I used to have a Glock 17 and Glock 19, and the Glock 19 used to reside in my bug-out bag, and so I think the compact would take its place in my bug-out bag, and this one will stay in the gun room or go in the basement safe or something, Anyway, I like it a lot. So, and I think we talked about this. There's a recall on the FN right now. I sold both mine and I immediately regretted it, and I wanted to get them back. And anyway, so Jeff ordered one I asked Jeff to order one, and then I kind of took a breath, and then like 24 or 48 hours went by, and I asked Denis about it. So Denis like, "You want me to order?" I'm like, "I do, but I already need to finish paying off my 1895, which is on layaway, and you've got a revolver there that I really, really want. So you can order it, but I'm not buying it right away." Plus, I also ordered one of those Benelli M4 clones from him. So anyway, man,
Did you get a good price? Those prices like bounced around quite a bit in the last week here. They were $850. I think I saw one for $699.
it depends who's bringing them in. If they're coming into Trigger Wholesale, they're $700.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen them, like you said, $699 all the way to $899, and that's Tenda. But Tenda is always more expensive. So whatever.
No, Tenda's usually cheaper. So,
really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Tenda's cheaper for everything. So for them to be more expensive is weird.
Okay. What else we got? You can unlock the camera. So back to the match. So I shot a match with this gun. This is my Tanfoglio Witness 1911 chambered in 45, and I had two. I had one in 9mm, one in 45, both identical. And I don't think I shot the 9mm. Like, I shot both of these just to say I shot them at the range once. Okay, there, I fired them. They work. After I tuned them up, and then I sold the 9mm because I got my Calgary Shooting Center Dan Weston, right? So my Dan Weston's my primary, my STI is my backup. I don't need a backup for the STI. Like, let's calm down. So I sold the 9mm, but I wanted to try a match in Classic Major. And the reason why I wanted to try a match in Classic Major is I do a lot of hosing of targets. For an old fat man, I run pretty fast, and my speeds are up there with some of our top production shooters and the smaller classic shooters and stuff. And my style of shooting lends itself more to a standard shooter who doesn't care about Charlies. Just pound the target, shoot as fast as you can, because you're scoring major. So I thought I would try a match shooting Classic Major, so I could score major and really hose. I wasn't hosing. I was shooting too conservatively, and there was a lot of unloaded starts. So you pull the gun from your holster, you pull a mag from the mag pouch, insert it, and rack around. I could have used a bit more crimp on my ammo. They weren't chambering very well. I had a failure to feed. I had 2 or 3 malfunctions, and one time I had a standing mag change because your stage plan when you're shooting with 9 rounds in the gun instead of 11 is very different.
Yeah.
So I had a plan worked out, and then somebody said, "I'm going to do it this way," and I went, "Oh, damn, that's a much better plan if you're shooting minor." So anyway, I ended up with a standing reload. Wasn't bad. It didn't hurt me too much. For the first match of the year, whatever, I did good. I won Classic Division, and I had the match won, and then we found a mistake in scoring. They had me down for 0.94 of a stage time. When most guys were doing it in 10, 11, 12 seconds, they had me down for 0.94. When you have a 0.94 stage time, do you know what that does to your power factor? Your hit factor?
Yeah, probably cranks it way up. What was your hit factor? Only like 30?
38. 38. 38 hit factor. Yeah, no. So luckily, I didn't know what to do. We couldn't let it ride because it was wrong, right? Mm-hmm. So, but the scores are submitted. What are you gonna? It's only a level 2. It's only a weekend match, but you still want to do everything right. Well, my RO had a head cam on.
Oh,
and he recorded the run. Mm-hmm. And he went back and reviewed the tape and got the actual time. So we sent the actual time to the match director, who then edited the results and made it correct. So my actual time was 9.54 seconds.
That makes a little bit more sense.
It does, but unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, it just is what it is. It changed the time, or changed the results. So now instead of me being 100% and Jeremy being 97 or 98, I was 97 of him. So Jeremy shot a great first match. Like, he's been doing a lot of practicing. Jeremy's the guy, I'll use his name now. He's the guy at the RO class a couple of weeks ago who got up in the middle of the class to show me a Ben Stager video. Yeah, well, he's been watching a lot of Ben Stager videos apparently because the man's learned some stuff.
Was he shooting the same division as you or different?
No, he's shooting production.
Oh, so you wanted the overall with your
yeah
your crazy 0.9 and your 38 hit factor.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So when we actually corrected the scores, I didn't win overall. I was just second overall. So I'll take it. Whatever. First time with this gun. First match of the season. And there's no shame in losing to Jeremy. He's up and coming, man. He's fit.
He shot a different division.
Pardon me?
You didn't lose. You shot a different division.
Yeah, and you can't win overall, but you can win overall.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't count. Yeah. It's only bragging rights. Yeah, unless you're shooting a PCC and you win overall, then it absolutely counts. That's when it matters. Yeah, this weekend I'm bringing both my PCC and my Glock. So I lent my 9mm. Sorry, I say Glock. I meant my 1911. I'm going to take both my PCC and my Dan Wesson this weekend, and then I'll decide what no, I'm done with PCC for now. I really enjoyed shooting a handgun again, and you know what? Like, it didn't completely fall apart after not shooting it all winter. I shot one match in pistol all winter, and that was January, and then I switched to PCC, and I almost pulled the trigger on a Geisley Super 3D or Super 3 gun for my FX9 this week, because I might get serious about PCC next year. I don't know. The older I get, the more tempting it is to switch divisions. So anyway, that was the match. It was huge, man. 13 stages. 13 stages for a level 2 first match of the year. And it was, what we call the black badge match. Mm-hmm. Black badge match has to be a level 2, and a level 2 has to be 6 stages. Well, this was 13 stages. So it was a monster match for the first one of the year. And their range in Woodstock has been completely rebuilt, renovated, whatever. They've added a whole pile of bays. They have what I refer to now as a level 3 caliber or quality range. They can hold, well, dude,
13 stages. That's a lot of bays.
Dude, we did 13 stages in 3 bays. The match director is accustomed to having to build, one big stage, and then you shoot this.
Did you have?
How many what?
Shooters did you guys have there?
33.
Oh, that's why. Okay. So you didn't have that. So like 3 bays is fine for
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Problem is he didn't know. 60 could have showed up.
You guys would have had a long day.
Longer day.
50 people through 3 bays.
Would have been ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but they're accustomed to piling everything into a couple of bays. He doesn't have to anymore. He can spread it out. Right? There's 3 or 4 bays on one side and then 2 on the other side. You walk down the road and you got 3 on this side and 2 on this side. And then the side berm that divides the pistol section from the rifle section has been sanctioned and approved as a backstop. So he can use the rifle backstop and the dividing berm as a backstop, and he can put some stages there.
Good.
Like Calgary did this at the Nationals. They had this long rifle range, and you shot straight down range into the backstop, and they just they built bays on a rifle range by putting big bales of hay. Winnipeg did something similar too, where they used the side of a rifle range berm and divided it into bays with secants. Yeah. So they have potential there to hold a monster. Like that. I'm not kidding. They could hold a Nationals with enough time and creative planning to divide that rifle section into a bunch of bays. No problem. So what else I got to say about the match? That's it. It was a lot of fun. My first official match as a range master. So I got my range master status last year after the provincial, and I finished all my qualifications then, and I got notification from IPSC Canada sometime late winter that I was indeed I had indeed completed my requirements, and I was a range master. So this was my first match as a range master, and the match director forgot to tell anybody. So when there were 2 DQs that didn't get called, which is, somebody gets DQ'd to call the range master, but he went over and he handled it. He made sure that the rules were followed appropriately. And the only other range master type thing I did was there were two poppers in a stage that were problematic. There was no adjustment on them. They're an old design and they're adjusted by lifting the front up and stuff like this. And the match director just simply did not have the time to test them before the match, and they started to fail immediately, and they fail often at those matches. So I wasn't going to let the stage get tossed. So instead, since my squad was the first squad to shoot it, I grabbed the tablet, went into the stages, modified the stage, pulled the 2 tablets out of the stage. We laid them down, threw them aside. Yeah, and then we just shot the stage without the steel. The match director was, of course, disappointed, and I can totally sympathize with him, because as a match director, when somebody messes with your work, it's hard to not take personal. Like you think it's going to work and you want it to work and you have an idea in mind, and then someone else just comes along and changes it. It feels arbitrary, even though it's not. So he took it really well. He's a good kid.
It sucks if you're trying to test something really difficult to test and that target was part of it. Like if you're trying to make it difficult for someone to stage plan and you needed those 2 targets in there. But a lot of the times you're just doing it for round count or doing it for, I need this many targets at this area.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool. It had you shooting them from an elevated platform, kind of on a lean. So it was cool. It was too bad to see them go, but we were 3 or 4 reshoots before I decided to pull them.
Yeah, and that's going to ruin your time for the day.
Yeah, and then by the time he came over, we already had 2 or 3 shooters who had shot it under the new design. So that's it for me. What have you been up to?
Let's see here. Friday. So Rick from Maple Seed, he was here on Thursday when we did the recording there. We taught a Maple Seed on Saturday. It was good. It was cold. It started at 4 degrees for the day, which was fine. But then it started snowing and blowing, and the poor students were on their shooting mats prone, and they had snow blowing in on the shooting mats. So they had to lay on wet shooting mats and shoot from those during the day. So it was
too bad.
It was cold. It was nasty.
Suck it up.
But they did pretty good. We had a lot of students qualify for riflemen, a lot more than we had last year, which was excellent.
Oh, no way. I think I think in Restigouche we only had 1 person in the whole class, and there was a lot of people.
Last year I think we had 2, but this year we had half the class qualified.
Nice.
So it was a much better result. I think a lot of the people, this is their second time taking the Maple Seed, so made a difference there. What'd your pistol rack in at?
Well, did it sound like 5.42? No, it's 5.5 pounds, 4.5 ounces.
Yeah.
Which, out of the box for a duty pistol, fantastic.
Yep. What else could I say about that Maple Seed? Uneventful. It was my first time doing Maple Seed as an IIT. I have a bunch more scheduled this year.
What sections did you do, or did you just babysit the line, or did you teach any component?
I did the 6 steps to making a rifle safe, and I was the dummy for a couple of the examples that they needed to show.
Mm-hmm.
And ROing the line, calling for ceasefire. Help. Some people came with rifles that weren't sighted in, so I helped them early on in the day, making sure that they got the rifles sighted in as soon as possible, so that they weren't
par for the course, man.
Yeah,
isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I talked to Rick about it, and I'm like, "Yeah, does that happen often?" He's like, "Yes." People will go buy a rifle and a scope and put it on, and then show up at the thing, and that's it. So, because I was like, "Man, it'd be nice if." The other thing is, and we didn't have it this year, but the last year we had people showing up with stuff that was harder because they're like, "I want to do it with my," and then they insert something that's a little bit more difficult, right? But then they get to the course and they're like, "Oh, wait a minute. This is harder than I thought it was going to be. I shouldn't have taken my whatever rifle that made it harder," right? So I think this year people showed up with proper or more proper gear for it, and that definitely helped us qualify more riflemen. I mean, you want to learn and practice rifleman marksmanship skills. You don't want to be practicing reloading a weird gun or shooting with sights that maybe aren't appropriate for or whatever. And this year it was good. So I got those guys squared away with setting in their rifles fairly early, and it was fairly uneventful. You know, I've been to a couple of the Maple Seeds, and this one was very average for all of them in terms of the consistency. Like that's one thing. I think I've mentioned this before. The consistency that Maple Seed does for the courses is very high, and the consistency was there as well. And then the very next day, we went and shot a CRPS match, which is this hat that I'm wearing here. So CRPS is that rimfire precision at long range. And then I turned around and wrote an article about it the next day because I'm, of course, an expert now that I've shot one. That's the I'm not an expert, but I'll write about it because no one else has. And it was very interesting. So we went through 10 stages. Most of them weren't like the one that I shared on Instagram, that one where you had to build your own barricade. Most of them were shoot. It's mostly positional shooting. That one was just a fun one to doing where you had to build your position. And there's a couple things that I did well. I think that in terms of setup for the match, I had I had an accurate rifle, accurate ammo. I had a really good scope for the match, an appropriate scope. I think my dope at range could have been better. I got there with one dope. I'd been trying to make Strelock work for my drop. But do you have Strelock, Trevor?
Do I have what?
Strelock is an app. It's a ballistics app. No,
I don't have any ballistics apps.
It's one of the more popular ones out there. It's very comprehensive. It's a little bit complicated to use, and I made a couple of mistakes. I took my rifle out to 200-300 before several times, but every time I'd get out and what Strelock was telling me and what I would observe would be different. And then I'd find out something new in Strelock. Oh, I didn't set the zeroing weather. You got to check that box and have it. Your zeroing weather needs to be set. Okay, done. And then I go and shoot again, and then I come back, and it's like, man, I'm still off. Oh, I didn't check the elevation density. Well, that has an impact on things. And my current weather wasn't set. So by the time I got to the match, I had been trying to make Strelock, trying to get it configured correctly so it would give me real results. And I wasn't there. So I was pretty close, but as the day went on, I finally figured it out from like observed impacts at distance. But that probably would have helped my score. It still wouldn't have got me top 10 though, because the top guys that showed up, I kind of had the impression like when I was going to go to this thing, it was going to be like PRS light, like people shoot PRS and they're very serious about it. And then every once in a while, they just crack out the 22s and they go, shoot one of these rimfire matches. Nope. There was like, the people were serious about this.
Oh, really?
They had extremely serious equipment specific to shooting rimfires long range. And that's something that surprised me. I thought this was going to be PRS light practice, cheap practice for PRS. And people were not at all treating it like that. It was its own thing. Have you ever heard of like a Voodoo V22?
Nope.
It's a REM 700 action in rimfire, and just the barreled action is like $2,500, and then the stock is $1,000, and then you need a trigger, so you're gonna put like a $300 trigger in there, and then you're gonna put a scope on there, so you're gonna probably gonna put like a $1,500 scope on there. So by the time you're done, you're looking at like a $7,000 rifle that shoots 22 LR. And some of the guys have those.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
They are serious about their game.
Yes. Yeah. That was the one thing that surprised me. I thought people would be cracking out like Mark IIs and maybe some CZs, and that would be the end of it. But nope. There's some people who are serious about this, which is kind of cool because it's kind of like opening the door and expecting one thing and finding out like, holy crap, there's a bunch of people that are super serious about this. I never knew this is a thing, and it is a thing. And yeah. anyways, coming back to my ranking, so I did okay. I was like, I was telling Rick on the way out there, I'm like, I think I'll get middle of the pack. My prep in some areas has been better. I won't melt down under pressure, but I haven't really been doing a lot of PRS. This is my first time shooting a PRS style match, so I can't expect to do like that great. And I did okay, but the guys in the top 10 were like another couple of levels up on top of that. So like the for me to get in there, I would need a lot more experience shooting these kinds of matches and practice, right? All right, enough about that. I wrote a CRPS. Oh man, our squad was really cool. We had some guys show up in costume as what are the little guys on Star Wars there?
Ewoks.
Dad as the Ewok and his daughter as Leia, and they're shooting Marlin 795s and kicking butt, shooting Marlin 795s out to 250 yards.
Of course, they were kicking butt Marlin 75. So you met Matthew McClatchy? So did this take place on May the 4th? Otherwise, why else would they be in costume?
That would it was May the 4th.
Yeah. I got Filthy so drunk that he threw up in his helmet. It was amazing. He was wrecked. I can't even share the video. I just can't. But
Stormtrooper throwing up into his helmet is a sorry state.
Clones can't hold their liquor, man.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. It started off with a few beers, and next thing you know, it was almost like at Andy's, where we kept pulling out all these half bottles of rum and then finishing them. Now there's no whiskey left in Fredericton. I'm sorry, but it was mostly Filthy. And then so he's throwing up, right? And he's like, Squire, get me some water. And he comes back with a glass of whiskey and he hands it to him. Oh, you almost took it. You imagine puking up whiskey and then rinsing your mouth with whiskey? It would have been awesome. But no.
Yeah. True friends. Yeah. CRPS match is fun. If we can, I would like to have more of those around, because it's super easy to just roll out to one of those things. We fit 10 stages in one bay, and we were shooting 5 of them concurrently. You have 5 different squads shooting all at once. So you can move a lot of people through a lot of stages in a small area, which is kind of neat. Let's see here. And then after the match, I swapped my Covenant. So I've got a Cabela's Covenant. I swapped it onto my NS522 because I need that $1,200 scope for testing other rifles. That's like my test scope. So I pull it off of there, threw a red dot on the 795. And now if I go, smoking gophers with the boy again, he can red dot that stuff up. Maybe get some standing shots.
I don't ever want to shoot game without a red dot ever again. After shooting a grouse in the head with my Typhoon and a red dot, it's the only way to hunt.
You imagine, like, there's some hunting purists listening right now, and they're listening to the phrase, I shot a grouse with my Typhoon F12 mag-fed semi-auto shotgun AR style with a red dot on it, and now I don't want to do anything else.
If you do anything else, you're a FUD. It's the only way to whack game.
I prefer to shoot grouse with a nasty old 22 and shoot him in the head.
Lame.
Right.
I shoot them in the head too, but I put a red dot on them first. I feel like I'm in the movie Assassins.
Don't you get pellets in the breast? Like how what choke are you using? Full?
Yeah.
Even with a full light, like every once in a while, I get it.
Sure, of course you do. Whatever. Not the end of the world. My dad used to shoot them in the butt. He'd be like, shoot them in the butt. You take the legs out from underneath them, rips the. That was his technique. Shoot them in the back legs. Yeah, no way.
Shoot them in the head with a 22 LR.
You can't. How many do you miss though? Like, I'm not that good of a shot to be headshotting grouse in the head with a 22, even with a scope.
You prop up your rifle. I never use a scope when I'm shooting grouse with a 22. It's always some iron-sighted rifle that's just out on the farm. But I'll grab onto a tree because there's always a tree there, and then that's your steady hold. Or
you're in Alberta. It's not always a tree. But if there's grouse or trees, yeah, you're right.
There's grouse, there's trees. Yeah. Anyways. Enough about hypothetical grouse hunting. And then this weekend I have a 3-gun match. I've got a 3-gun match on Saturday. I am going to shoot it with that modern sporter. So that nice minty modern sporter that ATRS lent to me might be thrown into a dump barrel at a 3-gun match. I might be jetting it through a VTAC, that kind of thing.
Proper thing. That's what it's meant
Proper thing. Yeah, but that should be good. That's it for me.
Okay, so moving along, I'm trying to line something up for us here. That's why I'm only kind of half listening, but we're going to jump into upcoming events and we may. Oh, there we go. Hold the line, Adriel.
I'll do this thing. You do that thing.
All right.
You should mute your. Yeah, there we go. Upcoming events. The Meaford Steel Challenge is open for registration. Match starts on September 7th at 8 a.m. and the match will end on the 8th. Sight in on the 6th. The location is the 4th Canadian Division Training Center just outside Meaford, Ontario, Canada. If you want more information, head to facebook.com, search for Meaford Steel Challenge or MLRSC. The next one here is the 4th annual Ronnie DeGroot Memorial Steel Challenge. This is going to be June 1st at the Restigouche Gun Club. It'll be $25. Registration will be on Practice Score. It will be USPSA Steel Challenge rules and stages. And I don't have this listed on the events, but this is just something that's new that's coming out. Is Cold Lake is starting a Rimfire Steel Challenge League as well. So if you have, if you're in Eastern Alberta or Western Saskatchewan, you might want to check them out. Cold Lake or Bonnyville, one of those two. They're very close. One of them is going to be doing a steel challenge where you'll be able to use rimfire rifles, rimfire pistols, and shoot steel plates. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, head on over to Cold Lake, or I can't remember which way I saw it on now. Sorry about that. Why don't we get over into the news? And the first one I have here is the C-71 amendments. The amendments were voted down, and now it's actually being sent to its third reading on May the 9th, which is today. So there's a good chance that that C-71 is going to get in and is going to pass. So that's a thing that's happening. Another thing, and this is something that actually Kelly was at, the two Kellys were at, as well as a bunch of people from the CCFR. They're out protesting at the city of Kingston was going to petition to strengthen C-71. They wanted a handgun, semi-automatic, and an assault weapon ban. So there was a town hall where they were going to vote on it. CCFR, SFRC, FRPC, CFB Kingston, and the Napanee Gun and Rod Club, as well as dozens of gun owners, filled the council chambers. Gun owners showed up, emailed. They really made a difference, and this was actually voted down. So now the city of Kingston won't be, I don't know, virtue signaling that they're going to put this ban in, which is kind of nice. And then I don't know if anyone else has seen this. But the CBC's The National has put out a couple of different videos on gun control here in Canada. They've been getting a lot of airtime to the Doctors Against Guns groups, and it's been, I don't know if I'll put a link to the show in the show notes, but it's kind of infuriating to watch because it is very much a one-sided argument, and unfortunate that it has to get to that. Trevor's just working on a breaking news story here, so I'm gonna give him a little bit of time to keep putting that in, and I'll get to I'll just do the new gun stuff for now. Just give me one moment. I am going to share my screen. I'm going to share that one. And then I will pull up my other notes on the side here, just so that we can pull these up. The first one is that Tenders is selling these MC312s. These are a Gersan semi-auto inertial action shotguns. These use a turning bolt similar to I thought they were 359. There's one for 359. These are inexpensive shotgun. I think that they might be decent for hunting, but again, I haven't shot some of these, and some of these Turkish shotguns are varying quality. So TBD on that one. The next one that's kind of neat here is these Husson. I'm not quite sure. They're a 410 shotgun AR upper. So you would take one of these guys and throw it on your AR and shoot 410, which is kind of interesting. They're $569 and kind of neat, kind of a weird, neat little thing. This next one, I didn't even know that these were still being sold, but apparently they are. I mean, there's some areas of Canada where if you're hunting, you have to use a shotgun. So I guess this is where you would use this. This is the Savage 212. It's a bolt action shotgun with mags, and it comes with a scope. So for $950, you get this bolt action slug gun, which apparently, this would probably be pretty accurate with slugs. Which I think is the idea here, but boy, what a weird combination. I think they put limits on some of these different firearms that were, I don't know, not able to, the rounds won't go as far is one of the excuses that's given. But boy, $1,000 shotgun just for hunting is kind of an odd thing. The next one I wanted to show was Freedom Ventures has these TechWell products in. They've got a couple of different ones. They've got some for something called TechWell. You'd assume that there's a magwell, and they have some magwells for the JP rifles as well as the MMG. They've also got some grips. So they've got some 1911 grips, kind of similar to the lock grips in look. And then they've got some TechWell magwells for 1911 and 2011 pistols. So if you're looking around for a magwell to load up mags a little bit better, take a look at those.
They are awesome. The TechWell magwell for the PCCs is really awesome. The handgun ones, I started my first magwell on my classic gun, and if you put a magwell on a classic gun in IPSC, it's important to make sure that you get one that's legal for your division and will still fit in the box. The first one I got is pictured there. It's the one that is open in the front, and it came with the great one grips, so the GTO grips that are also pictured there, those black ones, and the magwell actually locks up inside the G10 grip, and they make really nice stuff, and they're from Techwear USA. So you see all those cool shooting shirts around the range, they make the best shooting shirt hands down.
Interesting.
Yeah, same company out of New York. We our first team shirt for Restigush, we ordered Techwell shirts or Techwear shirts, and we got a ton of sponsoring, and we still had to pay $80 a shirt. They're
they're expensive, but they're nice.
Very nice. Yeah,
it's nice.
Yeah.
And then the last one here, this is one that I just saw like 1 hour ago. This is the MDT Impact Target Sensor. Now, what's the Magneto Speed has the T1000s, right? They're the LED blinkers you throw on the target. This is a very different idea. This is a sensor that goes on the target itself. You probably want to put it on the back, not on the front. And then so it's got two sensors and it's got a hub. And this connects with your phone. So, and the interesting thing, this works to 2 miles. So incredible range. I think at those red blinkers can be difficult to see at long range unless you're using a scope or some sort of spotting scope. But with these, you wouldn't have to, because it just says on your phone where the hits are. And if you watch this video, I don't know if this video is going to play for everyone or if they're going to be able to see. But you might be able to notice some familiar faces on here, because I think we've got Ryan Stacy showing up on these videos shooting these things. But yeah, cool, right? It shows the impacts right on your phone or tablet when you make those hits, like way out there.
That is cool. The guys are trying to build an F-class range at an F-class range at my gun club. So that might help. That might be something they want to look into for practice. Yeah,
I mean, like the T1000s are okay, but this is more reliable. Definitely going to be easier to tell whether you've made that hit or not. The T1000s, if you don't aim the LED perfectly, they're actually kind of hard to see. You need the LED, the reflector, to be aimed right back at you.
Okay.
Just to catch you up with what I've done here, I hit all the news items except for the one that you put there. And
okay,
new gun stuff.
All right. Sorry, I missed the Kingston one. Just the citizens around Kingston who are gun owners really rallied, and thank God there was a member of city council there with a good head on their shoulders to kind of let people know what was happening. And if people didn't kind of get tipped off to this may have gone through, and it was close. It was a vote of 7-6. So that would have been bad. Now, this is a thing that happens in the United States where municipalities start passing their own gun laws, and it makes it difficult when you're within one state to keep track of, okay, my magazines are legal here, but over here they're not legal. Like there's some state capitals where you're not allowed to have full cap mags, but the rest of the state you are. Right? It's ridiculous. So if Canadian municipalities start trying to pass their own gun laws or start trying to put pressure on politicians to amend or change gun laws, that's a scary time for us in Canada. So it's important to find out, where's your municipal government's head at with regards to this. You remember
they have a lot of time on their hands. Are they just busybodies? This seems like a busybody thing to do. Like you've got all the other things in the world that a municipality has to worry about, and you're worrying about something that is not in your control.
Yeah.
And not something you can effectively put pressure on other than doing like a virtue signaling thing like this.
Then that's what it is. Remember Dean from Select Shooting Supplies got attacked?
Yeah.
After he got attacked, a member of his municipal council started to victim shame. What? We have a gun store here? Well, this wouldn't happen if we didn't have a gun store. It wasn't about Mr. Crazy Pants. It was about the fact that there was a gun store, and he claimed he didn't know there was a gun store in his municipality. Well, like Tracy said, let's think about this. It's literally it's within a very close distance to his office.
Mm-hmm.
The name of the store is Select Shooting Supplies. It's kind of in the title kind of implies what it's all about, and yet he didn't know. And when he found out, he was concerned not with the violent act of this individual that attacked Dean. He was concerned with the fact that there was a gun store there that went unbeknownst to him for years, and then all of a sudden it's a problem because the owner got attacked. Yesterday you didn't know it was there. Today this guy's a victim, and now it's a problem. Yeah, these people are out there. They're representing you at the municipal government level, and you need to remind them who they worked for or who they are working for. So get involved in municipal politics, find out who's on council and what they stand for, and remind them they were elected to represent you. So that phone call that the listeners may have heard was from Tracy Wilson of the CCFR. And I wanted to get caught up a little bit with a tweet that I'm seeing floating around right now. And at this point, it's still a rumor, but Tony Clement said today that he has it on good authority or a reliable source, I'm paraphrasing here, that Trudeau is considering an order in council to impose a sweeping ban on guns. So nothing specific has been said, whether it's going to be quote unquote assault rifles and handguns or handguns, but he's meeting with the Prime Minister of New Zealand in BC in June. And the rumor is that he's going to ban our guns to virtue signal, to get on a soapbox, to be a pretend feminist, to show her support. So he's giving away our money to foreign countries, and now he's going to give away our rights to support a foreign country. He'll do everything for everyone else, but nothing for us.
He just lost that lawsuit with over the Navy procurement, and they're going to get bit on that hard. And now they're just looking for anything to save their butt. Like the one thing that I feel okay with is that if they introduce something like this as a voting position, they're gonna get beat anyways in the fall. I have the quote here from Tony Clement. If you wanted me to read it out,
please.
I have it on good authority that the PM has a secret plan to ban legal firearms. Apparently, this plan is to be executed by a cabinet directive with no debate in the Parliament. The PM plans to announce this gun ban at the Women Deliver conference held in early June in Vancouver, where New Zealand PM Ardern will also attend. Can the PM confirm or deny this zero accountability secret plan? Bill Blair responded, I just want to assure this House that our government remains absolutely committed to taking all the measures that are effective in keeping Canadians safe. And as I believe every member of this House will agree, There's no greater responsibility for any order of government. Sounds like some BS is cooking.
It's so incredibly infuriating that these people want to take things away from me for things that other people have done.
Other people in different countries, like in news,
Other people in different countries,
or the U.S. It's like how this doesn't happen in Canada very often.
like
I wonder if that's because there's other variables at hand that are just
can't be. Stop it. No, it's an inanimate object that does things. It possesses you, basically. No,
Well,
like
there was the 2-shooter incident in Colorado this week. Ended after one death because the people attacked them. Didn't get anywhere. It took down one person, but because of the actions of the reactions of people who were being shot at, it stopped very quickly.
So here's the thing. What really pisses me off about these gosh darn idiots is the I'm getting so tired of saying this, Adriel, especially since I'm preaching to the choir, but the gun laws don't prevent criminals from committing crimes with guns. No. If it did, we wouldn't have criminals. They wouldn't call themselves criminals, or we wouldn't have to call them criminals. They're already using guns they're not supposed to have. They're already using guns illegally smuggled into the country. If you take my guns away, it prevents me from having guns, but they already have guns they're not supposed to. So taking my guns away is not going to do anything to prevent them from doing what they're doing. They're already not supposed to do it. One more law is not going to suddenly make them wake up, smell the coffee, and go, oh, geez, I better stop this.
Oh, I got to find this quote. There's a quote from someone in support of a ban that says, we can't do anything to stop the influx of illegal firearms, so we have to look at legal firearms owners.
Yep, that's right. We have to be seen to be doing something. We can't stop the criminals, so let's stop the law-abiding. Yeah, it's all about the perception. They need to be seen to be doing something.
I read an interesting analogy yesterday as well on this, where you've got a house and you've got one really bad neighbor always throwing like really loud, crazy parties and making a bunch of noise. And then the next day after, there's a bunch of garbage on your lawn and beer bottles everywhere. You call the cops on your good neighbor to the side, and you never confront the bad neighbor who's actually throwing these wild, crazy parties. It feels like that's a good analogy for what we're facing right now, where they're still going after legal gun owners, and they're readily admitting with like no
not even hiding it anymore. Not
hiding the hypocrisy of this isn't going to do what we want it to do.
I'm looking up a news story that I saw yesterday. Surrey Council wants to make it illegal to drive with, are you ready for this? An illegal handgun.
Yeah.
An illegal firearm.
Yeah. Did they get the memo that's already, like, you can make it double illegal if you want.
Here it is.
That's neat.
Surrey MLA seeks to make it illegal to drive with unlawfully possessed firearm. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? We should make it illegal to kill people with baseball bats. No, wait. Killing is already illegal, so we're covered, right? That's how that works?
Double illegal.
Yeah.
Got to double up.
How stupid are you? Surrey Cloverdale Liberal MLA Marvin Hunt, ironic last name, expected to introduce his private members bill Wednesday afternoon. He wants to make it illegal to drive a vehicle with an unlawfully possessed firearm. You're not supposed to drive with an unlawfully possessed firearm. You're not supposed to walk with an unlawfully possessed firearm. If you are in possession of a firearm without a license, it is by definition an unlawfully possessed firearm. And it does not matter if you're driving, walking, running, skiing, biking, swimming. You, sir, are a moron. And you do not deserve to be in a position of authority or power or hold any political office at any level. I wouldn't let you walk a dog at the SPCA. You're an idiot and may get the dog run over.
I think like some of these municipalities just have too much time on their hands. Like here in Edmonton, our city council worries about like snow shovel, like keeping the snow off the streets. That's a major problem here in Edmonton. fixing the potholes that are horrible springs put on us, and then keeping the snow off the streets in the winter. They don't have time to worry about virtue signaling, about double banning handguns and this kind of thing.
What's next? Is my razor company gonna tell me being masculine is toxic? Wait, no, they did that. Anyway, let's move on. I can't smash the go button anymore. I'm gonna lose my mind.
You haven't watched any of the CBC, the Nationals recently, have you?
I brought up the video, the rural-urban gun control divide.
Mm-hmm.
These people are also freaking idiots. The guns that are the problem in the rural or in the urban areas are being used by criminals. It's not a rural-urban gun control divide. We have gun control. Criminals don't obey the law. The criminals are in the city because that's where the opportunities for criminals are. So you don't have a gun problem, you have a criminal problem. Do something about your socioeconomic situation.
There's criminal issues in both the rural and urban.
Sure, but there's not a lot of gangs running around in Jacket River, New Brunswick, okay? There's people stealing four-wheelers and gasoline, and they're not wearing colors and carrying Glock 17s while they're doing it.
No, they might have like an old wrapped-up cooey or something like that.
They don't even. They don't. Anyway, all right, let's jump into our main topic. Well, it's time for our main topic, and because this is episode 303, we've invited on a special guest, a YouTuber who goes by the channel name Bloke on the Range, and his Facebook is also called Bloke on the Range. But I guess we're friends now because he revealed his real name to us. It's Mike. So, Mike, welcome to Slamfire Radio.
Hi, glad to be here.
Thank you for coming on. I mentioned a couple episodes back that I was trying to touch base with you to have you come on just to talk about, your channel and your focus. I discovered your channel through researching Lee Enfield's, and I've got to say I've learned a lot. The most useful or entertaining, both useful and entertaining videos that I've seen are some of your myth-busting videos, especially the ones about headspace, are very entertaining. We'll talk about headspace in a little while here, maybe, but I also really like I'll read your bio and the listeners will understand why I've invited you on. So if you go to Bloke on the Range's Facebook page, the bio says firearms history, bloke-splaining, firearms mechanics, myth busting, shooting sports, and I forgot already, Mike. You'll have to correct me if I mess it up. Kitschy? Nope, I did it wrong. Kitschy. There we go. Kitschy sketches all in one place. An open, dry, and sarcastic look at whatever takes blokes or chaps fancy in the world of guns and shooting. All right, who's Chap?
He is my best mate other than my missus.
Mm-hmm.
I met him in a gun shop randomly in Holland.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to work for the same employer there, and I hit it off and ended up partly by coincidence, moving to Switzerland at about the same time. And I borrowed his crappy old camera. I had a burning desire to make the first two videos on Bloke on the Range. One about M1 I can never pronounce that right. M1 Garand's, and why Lee Enfield are fast. And it kind of snowballed from there slowly.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you started doing really early on that I noticed was proficiency in those World War II era rifles. That's something that you see a lot of people shoot them, but you don't see a lot of people getting really proficient in their use, being able to load them on the clock, being able to fire them really accurately using the equipment that they come with. And that's something that you've really specialized on your channel. At least that's one of the things. That's how I found you as well. Is M1 Garand shooting videos and Lee Enfield. I think Mad Minutes. Have you done some?
I've done quite a bunch of Mad Minutes.
Yeah. So before we go on, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say the other person who's doing this sort of proficiency stuff, and he's far more serious about it from a historical perspective than me, is of course Rob of British Muzzleloaders, who is working his way through as much of the training materials and official qualification practices as possible. I mean, he's in Western Canada and he has the great outdoors to go and brass up. I unfortunately don't. Here we have to shoot on official ranges, and So I can't just set out to target at 500 yards and dress up in a kilt.
Yeah, he does a fantastic job. He's got that classic Western Canadian accent, not like your very much unlike your New York accent, which is where we were going to go to next.
What district of New York am I from?
Queens, definitely, I would say. It's a Queens, right? He's got that Queens type.
Not on
So
the island.
maybe the Bronx. So why don't you, Mike? Why don't you tell the listeners where you're originally from, since they can tell that you're not Quebecois?
Well, I'm originally from the south of the UK.
Okay.
I'll just put it as a generalization. I grew up within about 25 minutes drive of Bisley.
Mm-hmm.
That's in the mecca of British serious shooting, long range shooting.
Well, not just British, the Commonwealth. Everybody considers it a feather in their cap when they get to go to any kind of shoot or competition in Bisley.
I mean, hallowed turf.
Yes, definitely.
Well. Actually, I took an Australian who was a shooter who was working at the school my mother worked at, sort of gap year thing or something. And he was an Australian shooter, and he'd heard of Fulton's, and he almost wanted to take his shoes off at the door. And I just walked in because it was something I did all the time.
Right.
And I just walked in with him, and he was like, "Can I walk in?" Yeah, it's just a job, but it's Fulton's.
Oh, that's awesome.
So anyway, sorry, that's the first massive Bloke on the Range tangent already. So my father taught at a school which had a cadet corps and had a 25-yard small bore range. And I at first fired a real gun when I was 10 on that range, and it was a Lee Enfield number 8. And then when I went to the school, I'd done quite well age 10, so I was immediately invited to come and join the shooting team, and it started from there. So during the sort of winter and spring, I'd shoot small bore prone on this range, mostly with number 8s, and then in the summer we'd shoot Commonwealth style target rifle at Bisley. And I think the most heavy season we were doing 2 or 3 sessions a week at Bisley, getting pretty serious. And then when I was 18, I actually came to Canada.
Really?
I shot the Canadian Cadet Skilled Arms meeting and the DCRA meeting in 1999.
Ontario.
Yep, Connaught Ranges, just outside Ottawa.
Wow.
So I did that. That's was my first Canadian experience. I came back the next year to work as a range officer at the DCRA meeting, which was good, and that funded a trip to Western Canada to go do some walking up around Banff and so on. And then other shooting was in parallel to that serious Commonwealth target shooting. I joined another club that used the range at school on I think it was a Monday evening, and they were quite milsurp focused, particularly Lee Enfields, and there were a couple of guys there who were very, very, very serious collectors. One of them even has a P13. That's how serious he is. Yep.
P13.
Yep. The
What's
276. The 276 trials rifle.
Wow.
He never let me fire that one, but I've seen him fire it.
Huh. Didn't even know that was a thing. I mean, I'd like to say everyone sort of the P14. There was a time when I had never heard of the P14, so I won't make that statement. But that's interesting. I didn't know that was a thing. Huh.
I didn't know that was a thing that like a civilian would have. Like, okay, yeah, trials rifles. I'm sure they have them in some museum somewhere, but for a guy just to have it
well, they surplus them off. They sold a lot of them off. And I happened to see a rack of 5 of them in the rotunda at Woolwich Arsenal that hadn't been sold off, and the museum there was sort of selling off certain parts of its collection and really didn't understand what it had. But Ian had this guy is called Ian. It's not Forgotten Weapons Ian, of course. He had a P13. He had a P13 converted to a P14. And he had practically one of everything. I mean, really impressive collection.
Wow.
So I went shooting with them, and then continued doing that. It drove the shooting coach mad that I was interested in shooting things other than pure target rifle.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're interested in something and you've got the opportunity to pursue it, you pursue it.
Absolutely. So we know how you got involved, and you've done a lot of target rifle. We can clearly see that by your videos. You're wearing the proper equipment, so it shows your target rifle background. What else have you focused on? There was interest in other disciplines as well. What else have you done over the years?
I did quite a lot of IPSC
Yeah.
in Holland. I moved to Holland after graduating from university.
Mm-hmm.
Part of which was a greater ability to pursue my sport, shall we say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What division did you shoot in IPSC?
Well, better question, what discipline did you shoot? Did you shoot rifle or did you shoot handgun?
Both.
Both, okay. And what divisions did you shoot?
Shotgun. I started out... Yeah. In fact, I first shot IPSC back in 97 in the UK, which was shotgun, because that's pretty much all there was at the time, because it was... literally just after the handgun ban. So I did an IPSC shotgun course down in the West Country back in 97. And then that sort of went aside until I got involved in IPSC handgun initially in the Netherlands. And I started out, in the Netherlands, when you're a sports shooter, when you first get your license, this is how it was back then. It's even stricter now. You could buy one gun. You could have one gun in your first year of having a license. Once you've done that year, you could have up to 5.
How generous.
Yeah, very, very generous of them. They were quite generous on what you could have, but you could only have 5 of them at any one time. Now it's stricter, and you have to go through a series of starting with 22 and then working your way up. So I did my basic course with a Pardini GT9 6-inch, which I foolishly bought thinking, I'll get a 6-inch. It doesn't fit the standard box. I better mount a red dot on the slide.
Yep.
This was
got nowhere else to go now.
Yeah, this was extremely foolish. I wish I hadn't done that.
Oh wow.
I then ended up trading that in for a SIG P226, which I still have. So I shot production for a bit. Decided that it wasn't necessarily for me, and switched to revolver division. And I had my most success in revolver, actually.
Now, is that because you were the only one in the division?
You'd say that, but there was one
every
competition.
time.
There was one competition I went and shot in Germany. In fact, it was my best performance in a competition. Was in Germany. I was the only one in revolver division, and even though I tuned it, they let me shoot in production rather than kicking me to open or standard or whatever it was fine. Yeah. And I didn't shoot anything outside of Charlie all day.
Oh wow!
I was really happy. It was probably because I was pressure off, because I was the only revolver shooter, so I could really focus on just shooting and not worrying about the other guys. So that was fun, shooting 45 ACP major, being scored minor in production. And I still beat about a third of the auto shooters or something.
Nice.
Which was fun. And then rifle, when I started doing that there, I actually started that with an SLR, L1A1, which is quite fun. Did my basic course with that. Had an original AR-10 for a while. Wow. Shot that. Actually shot a level 3 in Denmark with that as well, which was
level
fun.
3 rifle match. Wow. Such a thing has never occurred in Canada.
I'm sure.
We're having our first level 3 shotgun match in IPSC Canada's history in September.
Oh wow.
Big focus on handgun. There's 3-gun in the country recently, but as far as IPSC has been dominated for decades just by handgun.
Yeah, your shotgun rifle, nothing.
It was the same in the Netherlands. It was very, very handgun dominated, and then people got started on rifle, and then shotgun was more difficult to get going because of legal issues with getting shotguns, and there was a massive fallout with the clay pigeon shooters. And a little aside, the Dutch equivalent of the DCRA, they worked themselves into a position where they were sort of the people who could approve shooting disciplines for which you could acquire guns, and they didn't like practical shotgun, so they actually banned lead shot for clay pigeon shooting until someone pointed out to them that the Olympic rules require the use of lead shot. So then they had to exempt the Olympic team.
Oh wow.
Bit of a nightmare. So there's a lot of the guys that have managed to convince their police forces to let them have a pump or semi shotgun, share the guns around a lot, and things like that. But the circuit is mostly handgun dominated. There's far more ranges you can do it on. Rifle, you really need at least a 50-meter bay, but which we'd run a pretty comprehensive level 2 on one of the better ranges. Had a 100-meter bay, a 50-meter bay, and a 25-meter bay, and we'd use them all, so we could get 9 stages in, 8 or 9 stages shot in a day, and it's bloody loud.
It seems like such a waste to shoot a rifle at 100 in and not at least have one stage where you're going out to 300-400 meters.
Well, sometimes they put in some slightly more challenging targets, like a 4-inch clay pigeon or so. But you'd be amazed the number of people that will drop down to a bipod to shoot a full-size IPSC classic target at 100.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what's funny, Mike, is sometimes we get a little bit of constructive criticism from our listeners that we talk too much about IPSC. Here we are trying to have a MilSerp episode with a MilSerp YouTuber, and we're talking about IPSC.
And an IPSC that you can't even get in Canada. IPSC rifle doesn't even exist here.
Well, it does,
right.
but
I'll dovetail
it's
it back
not used.
in. I'll dovetail it back in for you nicely. You know my Franken rifle, my Australian International Arms.
Yeah.
I shot that twice in semi-auto open.
In semi-auto open. Well, I was going to ask you. You've had the experience of both shooting and seeing other people shoot IPSC rifle matches with Lee Enfields. So, what has that been like?
Well, I was the only one. The only person I've seen shoot an IPSC match with a Lee Enfield type action is me.
Oh.
Because everyone's shooting semi-autos.
Yep.
And in the rule book of the day, you could shoot a manual action in semi-auto because it was just said there was just no restriction on the action.
Oh, right. And now we have a manual action division in both the shotgun and rifle discipline.
There was a manual action division.
Okay.
And there was a limitation on the type of action, but it halved your round count. So why bother just shooting? I was the only person idiotic enough to do it. So it was fun. 10 and 20 round detachable magazines. The close up close and personal run and gun ones, middle fingering it. It's always fun to do that when you turn up on the range for a 40 round minimum course, and you load and make ready, and the range officer clicks that you've got a bolt action, and he's like, "What?" And they make a joke about, "Yeah, we're going to be here for a while," and then the beeper goes off, and you're middle fingering it with a red dot, and you're almost keeping up. I mean, it's always a truism in IPSC shooting is you can't miss fast enough to win, and a lot of the semi-auto shooters, they miss very, very fast.
They sure do, yeah,
and frequently,
very frequently.
So, Mike, can you touch upon, for the listeners who may not be familiar with the term middle fingering it? As a Lee Enfield owner, I've middle fingered. I know what it means, but you want to explain what that means?
Basically, it means hanging on to the bolt handle between forefinger and thumb and pressing the trigger with the middle finger. You can go very, very fast. And I've got a video where I'm doing literally just this standing up, and I'm down below 0.7 splits on a full-size IPSC target at all of 10 meters. But you can get your splits down well below a second in aimed up close and personal fire. Because I mean, yeah, to bring it on to MilSerps, everyone forgets the bit between proper conventional shooting, and the bayonet. And there's this forgotten zone of you can't reach them with the bayonet, but you're not doing proper sort of positional shooting. And the middle fingering technique is that sort of gap filler.
So it's the middle finger technique is for CQB,
basically.
Yeah,
and it was officially taught in the Second World War for that. And I did a couple of videos with Rob on Second World War CQB technique. The first video focusing on the early war hip shooting technique, and the second video on the late war middle fingering technique. And it was brilliant fun.
Yeah,
if you haven't watched that, you should.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people would be surprised to find out that it was actually a technique that was taught to the troops.
Yep, absolutely.
Mm.
And one technique we were talking about just a little bit earlier was hold under and battle zeros. I think one of the things that I've heard of is this idea of a 6 o'clock hold with rifle. Now, I didn't really see the point of it for the longest time because your hold under is going to vary based on the distance, and it's not something that can be reliable. So I prefer to have the target right on the flat of the irons. But in a recent video, you were shooting an SKS, and I think it was at 300, and you set your rear sight to 400, so you could aim lower, and your sights weren't obscuring the target.
Yep.
And that I finally got. I was like, oh, it's such long range. You can't even see the stupid thing if you're covering half of it with your sights. That's why you'd want to do a 6 o'clock zero.
Yep. And it is actually part of the Russian, or the Soviet, now Russian battle doctrine, because the rearmost setting on an SKS or an AK is 400 meters, give or take. I need to absolutely confirm this to be 100% sure, but they taught what was called a belt buckle hold, where you aim where the opponent's belt buckle is, and with the sight set to 400, you'll be hitting your group will be centered on the belt buckle at 400. At 300, it's going to be about a foot high, which is still a good center of mass hold, and basically anywhere up to a bit beyond 400 meters, you've got a point blank zero that is good enough for government work. And the Swiss K31 rifles from 300 back are set that way. They're set for 30 centimeters high at 300, 40 centimeters high at 400, 50 centimeters high at 500, all the way back, which is partly a sop to the target shooters, because 6 o'clock hold has a massive advantage on a target range where you're always shooting at the same aiming mark. But it does make a degree of sense when you think about it, because at 300 meters already, a man-sized target is getting kind of hard to see. And if you're obscuring half of what you're trying to see with your front sight blade, you're not seeing as much of it. And of the two targets we use, we've got the standard ISSF aiming mark, black aiming mark. And then we've got this nasty figure target that represents more or less a prone rifleman, and it's dark green on a sort of splinter pattern camouflage background. And okay, I'm approaching 40 now, and the accommodation in my eyes is I'm starting to see the issues. But if I try and aim at the center of that target, I'm struggling. And you get optical effects over the top of your front sight and all that, and it just gets very hard to aim at. It's a hard target to aim at anyway, even if you're balancing it on top of the post. But it certainly it's a technique. It's not for everybody, but it has a lot of merit. And interestingly, the proponent of it is Carl of InRange.
Really?
I was discussing this with him a few weeks back, and he was telling me that he is also a 6 o'clock hold proponent. And question, with an iron-sighted pistol, where do you like your point of aim with respect to your point of impact?
Now, I don't do the 6 o'clock. I want the front sight to cover, the X of the 10 ring, not below it. And I want the point of aim, point of impact to be the same. And if I have a pistol with an adjustable rear sight, I will adjust my sights accordingly so that whatever distance I zero the pistol at, it's point of aim, point of impact for the bullseye.
So when you say that, Trevor, though, like your front sight, you're running a fiber optic sight. Do you want the dot to be the bullet hole?
That's right.
Or if this is the X, do you want right on top of the fiber?
My sight picture will be the fiber or front sight covering the center of the X ring, and that's where I want the bullets to impact.
Interesting. I mean, it's partly from my pure target shooting background, but with adjustable sights, I'll adjust the type of target I'm shooting at, because our precision targets, it's an 8-inch, 20 centimeter aiming mark. So with my sport pistol, I'll adjust it to be underneath. In any other circumstance, I really want my point of impact to be about 2 inches over the top of my front sight at 25 meters. So when I'm shooting ISSF dueling, which is a great big dustbin lid, black dustbin lid with well, I can still see the rings if I focus on the foresight, and there's a couple of horizontal bars to help you aim. I don't want to be holding my sights exactly in the middle there. I want to be holding it at the bottom of the X ring on that particular target. Basically, I want there to be a little bit of light between where my sights are and where my bullets hit. But that's probably just a personal preference. I don't want to cover half of it. I want to just see what I'm aiming at, just over the top of the sight.
Personal preference to a point, and then I believe in certain games there would be an advantage to that sight picture over other games. Is that fair?
Yeah, probably. But with IPSC as well, I would used to set my revolver sights. I put a gold bead on. Big fan of the gold bead. And I wanted that for a long shot at sort of 25 yards or so. I wanted this 2 inches over. I just feel comfortable with it. And then for up close and personal, I just put that big gold bead in the middle of the rear notch, and it'll go close enough for government work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like, I don't know, say a half inch over top my sight. So when my sights return back to zero, I can kind of see where it is, but very, very close to that front sight.
This is something that I'm going to have to go back and revisit. I shot a match on Sunday with a pistol. I had not shot in a match before and only shot one other time. Hadn't really zeroed it, and paid the price on a stage. There were 3 steel mini poppers at 25 yards, and I was shooting high right. It took 3 magazines in 30 seconds.
We've all been there.
Yeah,
we've all been there. I did I think it was a level 3, my first level 3 with my P226, and we had poppers out at 25 meters, and I really hadn't got my trigger control nailed under pressure, and we're shooting in an awkward position, and like 3 magazines of brassing up the backstop later, I'd managed to get them over.
Yeah, trigger control was fine. I was told by the people behind me who weren't coaching, thanks guys, that and they weren't supposed to, so it's fine. I shot the most beautiful tight group on the berm right to the high right on all of them, and then after a while, I was just like, okay, I've got to change where I'm holding, and held
Was
lower
that
on the
pistol used,
popper.
Trevor?
No, that was a brand new one of my 10 full glow witnesses. So anyway, well, let's move on to the next topic I'd like to talk about with you, Mike, and that is you left the UK, and from what I gather from your YouTube channel, you've been in a couple of countries since then. Why don't we touch upon those countries and what your experience has been with the regulations in those different countries, and what your focus has been in those countries. So after the UK, where did you go next?
I went to the Netherlands.
Okay. And then we know you did some IPSC there. Target rifle as well?
I actually shot the equivalent of target rifle, all of 100 meters, because it's all indoor ranges, with a free-floated H-bar AR-15 with a set of target sights on it, which was quite fun. And compared to guys shooting factory ammo out of anything else, I was dominating them, which was always satisfying.
Absolutely. Domination and satisfaction are 2 of my favorite words. Where to after the Netherlands?
Switzerland.
Okay, and that's where you call home now.
Yeah.
All right. So what are the firearm regulations like in Switzerland, so the listeners can kind of compare and contrast between Switzerland and Canada? Let's talk about things like licensing, registration, caliber restrictions, magazine capacity. Let's touch on those and start wherever you like.
Okay. Basically, it depends on your legal status here. If you've got the equivalent of, I don't know what it is, permanent residency in in the UK, it's permanent leave to remain. So
right, we call it permanent citizenship.
Well, there's permanent resident and then there's citizenship.
Yeah,
right. A permanent resident is someone who is immigrated, and citizen. Right? Or am I confusing those two, Adriel?
Permanent resident is someone who is legally
born
here and
legally here.
Is here as a resident, and typically what you'll do is you'll be here for 3 years, and then you're qualified to apply for citizenship.
Okay. Oh, blimey! Here it's 5 years minimum to get permanent residency, and then another 5 years before you can apply for citizenship.
Yeah, Canada is pretty open, so
it's not bad.
Okay, so depending on your level or definition of current citizenship, that will determine what you can own.
No, sort of. Everything's
Okay.
based around acquisition here,
Okay.
which is quite different to the UK and Germany and the Netherlands, where there's acquisition and possession are regulated kind of separately. So if you've got permanent residency or a citizen, you have an absolute right to own firearms,
Really?
provided
No.
you have a clean record.
Sure.
Mhm.
Reasonable.
Now, there's 3 categories of firearms, basically, or 4 categories. The simplest one's antiques. If you're over 18, you can have them. There's no registration. There's no nothing.
Now, what defines an antique?
Pre-1870.
Okay. And that's it. Doesn't matter about type of firearm, shotgun, pistol, rifle, or caliber. If it's pre-18, what?
1870.
1870, it's considered an antique?
It's pretty old. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that's pretty strict. In the Netherlands, it was a lot more liberal. I mean, stuff chambered for black powder firearms and not nitro-proofed up to it's either the outbreak of the Second World War or the end of the Second World War were free, which put the price up massively.
Of course.
So then the next level up, you've got hunting rifles, target rifles, Swiss military bolt action rifles. You don't need any particular permit or anything to acquire them. The person selling has to check you're not a prohibited person. So you can either show them a criminal record declaration or a higher level gun permit, less than 2 years old. There's a series of things like hunting permit, things like that. What else is in that? Rabbit killers and single shot black powder pistols are in there as well. That is registered by the seller sending a copy of the sale contract. You have to make a formal contract with certain information on it, and all that happens is that the seller sends a copy of that to your police force, and it goes in their incredibly Swiss cheese-like whole-filled database.
Yeah, sounds like it's sending over to the police. You know what's interesting is this is very different. There's a couple of memes like floating around Canada where in Switzerland, everyone goes to the military and everyone gets their gun for free afterwards. That's the myth over here.
There are certain conditions linked to that. You have to have shot the Feldschießen and the obligatory shooting a certain number of times in the years running up to you leaving the service. And you have to have done a certain number of years of service, and you have to get an acquisition permit, which is the next level up in the licensing system. Now, you have an absolute right to this if you have a clear record. It's just a paper chase. You have to send off for an acquisition permit, which allows you to buy up to 3 guns from the same seller at the same time. And that's basically anything that's not a full auto or a down conversion from full auto, and that doesn't fall into the lower, freer category. And currently, there's no magazine restrictions. There's no caliber restrictions. It's slightly silly, but for instance, a Remington 700 in 308, depending on what sort of stock it's in, it's either in the category where you need an acquisition permit, or it's in the freely available category. It's basically, does it fit in the hunting or sport shooting rules? It's the same gun, but anyway.
I mean, that might sound silly, but I promise you, we've got sillier in Canada because we can't do a bullpup stock as an add-on to a rifle. But if it comes with a bullpup, that's okay.
Well, hey, yeah. Well, every system of firearms law has its bizarre, illogical things in it. Let's not beat about the bush here. Yeah. Even the most sensible, in inverted commas, one has silliness hanging around in it. So yeah, currently no magazine restrictions. I will mention the referendum briefly. If the referendum goes against us, we are going to have some silliness with magazine restrictions, which will put buying a semi-auto rifle with a magazine over 10 shots puts it into an even higher category, but buying it with a 10-shot magazine puts it in the category we just discussed, the acquisition permit. It's this horrible fudge that the EU is foisting on Switzerland, and that's as far as I want to take this horrible discussion, because it's politics, and we'll see what happens with the referendum. And if we lose it, we will adapt and overcome. And if we win, well, hey.
Yeah, then you're done.
Fantastic.
Where do handguns fall into what category?
They fall into that acquisition permit category.
Okay, very
So
good.
it's basically everything everything that isn't or in a lower category, or isn't a down conversion from full auto, or isn't a full auto.
So,
And this is an important point, is that the demilitarized Swiss service rifles, Sturmgewehr 57s and Sturmgewehr 90s, they don't count as down conversions, even though they are down conversions. So you can buy them currently, you can buy them on an acquisition permit.
Cool.
So, I mean, it seems like there's a really strong rifle heritage there, especially with milsurps and that kind of thing. You've got a couple of Lee Enfields. This is our 303 show. So, which versions of the Lee Enfield do you have?
I've got 2 number 1 Mark 3 stars. I've got a number 4 Mark 1 star long branch, and I've got a number 4 Mark 2 in service rifle B setup. So the 303 era target rifle setup, and both of my 2 number 4s shoot brilliantly, I must say. But the center bedded service rifle B one with target sights on it is just awesome. It can almost keep up with my K31.
Wow.
With target sights, let's put it that way.
So, some of the things on your channel that you focus on with regards to Enfields are some of the myths that seem to have come up with the birth. They seem to have been born with the internet. Would you agree?
Oh, some of them come from coffee table books and gun magazines from before the internet. They're recycled. It's amazing that some of them are actually, they seem to be recycled from the pre-World War I era, from the P-13 program era.
Wow.
That it was sort of the anti-SMLE propaganda from the Bisley School of Thought back in the day, trying to get the army to adopt a Mauser-actioned rifle based on the Boer War experience. And this gets recycled through books, through magazines, and now the internet. It just keeps getting recycled. But because it's the internet, we can literally put these to the test and put it on YouTube and show what is true, what isn't true, what's got a grain of truth to it, and why.
Okay, so
and I find that fascinating, because I like busting myths.
Well, let me throw a myth at you, and then you can bust it. How's that sound? Lee Enfields have a excessive headspace problem, and you can pretty much not reload the brass more than once, and then it cracks due to the excessive headspace. Myth or fact?
Myth.
All right. Myth. Why is it a massive myth?
The SAMI headspace gauge, the SAMI no-go gauge, is 3 thou too short.
All right, then.
The Commonwealth no-go gauge is 74 thou. The SAMI no-go gauge is 71 thou.
Wow.
So, according to the headspace obsessives down below your border there,
yep,
they could take a factory new rifle and it would gauge out.
Yep.
Simply because all the headspace check at the factory does is see, are we before proof, or possibly even after proof, are we between 64 thou and 74 thou? And 3/10 of that is outside the SAMI gauge.
So all these rifles are being checked with a SAMI gauge, which is technically out of spec, and so people are running around thinking that their Enfield is now has excessive headspace and is dangerous, and kittens will die if you fire it.
Yeah, and to be honest, people who think that the difference between a rifle shooting like a freaking laser beam and it being a bomb that's going to go off in your hands is like 1 thou of headspace, they need to take themselves out back and give themselves a good talking to, frankly. You'd be amazed. I mean, over here, we don't obsess about that at all. If I went into a gun shop and said, "Hey, here's my 98K, can you check the headspace for me?" They'd be, "What? Why?"
Yeah, it seems like I've never checked the headspace on any milsurp that I've bought, and it's I've just shot it. Now, some of them, like the Lee Enfields that I've had, when you reload them, the cases, you do get case head separation on them, at least with the ones I've shot. But that's with full length resizing as well, and you don't really need to do that.
No, I mean, I've never had that. But to be honest, if you want brass life, you've picked the wrong caliber, because the chambers are cut deliberately loose so that the ammunition can be covered in cacks and still chamber and fire.
Exactly.
Which is one of... Okay, let's just not beat about the bush here. Rimless ammunition overall is clearly superior in practically every way, shape, or form. But there are certain areas where rimmed has certain advantages. One of which is that you can have a massive tolerance on the chamber, which is interesting. The reason why the Russians adopted it, because they were not convinced of their industry's ability to create well-tolerance chambers back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And by having rimmed, your critical dimension isn't in the chamber, and frankly, you can have a massive cavernous chamber and it will still shoot safely
because it's head spacing off the what?
Off the rim.
Wow.
And even if it does
Science.
go massively over headspace, the further advantage of rimmed is that the case head is massive compared to rimless, because you're not cutting into it.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of these videos I'm going to do probably with a tin hat on, because I'm going to get hate in the comments. I'm going to talk about the elephant in the room that gets totally missed in all this obsession about headspace. Is it the safety thing? The critical thing is not headspace; it's case head support. That you can create. Bubba is perfectly capable of rebarreling a rifle that's tight on the go gauge, the minimum headspace, and will blow up at the first shot.
Because he worked on the wrong thing.
Because he cut too much clearance at the back end of the barrel. So if the case head's unsupported, boom.
Yep. All right. So that was some excellent bloke explaining. Now, if you could bloke explain one more thing for the listeners, what is stocking up? That term, we hear the term stocking up with regards to Lee Enfields, and what does it mean, and what effect does it have on the rifle's accuracy?
Stocking up is the single biggest contributor to rifle accuracy on any rifle, particularly milsurps, where there's some contact by necessity. Basically, barrels that light, firing cartridges that heavy, and this goes for all of the 30 cal and up milsurps. They typically don't shoot well free floated because the barrel's too whippy. The vibrations as the bullet's going down it are too much for it to handle. So it's damped in certain ways. And going back into the 19th century, you'd have the barrel laid out in the barrel channel in contact all the way down, because that's what they did. That's what they did in muzzleloaders. That was carried over. The people who really cracked this was your southern cousins. They're the ones that cracked the stocking up problem. We were fiddling around, us Brits, with SMLEs with like two springs in the stocking up system and contact here but not here and tight here and blah. Nonsense. The Americans got it right by having the barrel clear forward of the chamber until the front end of the stock, where there's a muzzle bearing that applies up pressure.
And this is in the Springfield 1903.
And that's in the 1903.
Yeah.
And that was copied directly in the P13, P14, and that appears in the number 4. Because that is the way to make that sort of lightish barrel shoot straight and minimize the effect, the influences of warping of the stock.
So is it safe to say, or fair to say, or accurate, that when someone sporterizes a Lee Enfield, when Bubba decides to chop all the wood off, that he is in fact making the rifle less accurate?
Yes, in almost 100% of cases. Now, if the stock is horribly warped and is applying side pressure or down pressure or whatever, yes, free floating will improve it over that. I mean, free floating is better than bad stocking up, but good stocking up is better than everything.
Right. Now, is there any advantage to bedding the action area, the receiver area in Enfield stock?
As a purist, I'd say that's bubberizing.
Okay.
But if you don't mind that, then yes, there is. There is.
Okay. So you have a rifle that's already been taken, like my long branch we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Someone already drilled the side of the receiver. I've already refinished it with parkerizing. It has lost all collector value.
Oh yeah, fill your boots. Do what you like.
Well, only if it's going to improve accuracy. Otherwise, what's the point? I'm not going to do it for the sake of doing it. So, would bedding this receiver help with accuracy?
It would depend on the condition of the receiver, because if it's bedded well around the receiver already, straight to the wood, you're unlikely to make much of an improvement. It's sort of one of those really sort of cost benefit analysis. What's the probability of me screwing it up? I mean, if there's a suspicion, like if the wood's heavily compacted or something.
Yeah, see,
then yeah,
I don't.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't have enough experience to look at it at an Enfield stock and know whether or not it's what you just said. So I'll have to shoot it for groups, see how it groups, and then
little anecdote on this point. A lot of people seem to believe that free floating improves in all cases. Well, if that were the case, they would all have been free floated from the factory, because that's far easier to set up. You don't need to faff around. I mean, the practically the only bit of skilled workmanship in a number 4 is the stocking up of the fore end. They've managed to engineer practically all the rest out of it so that it could just be put together by spanner wielders. They were assembled rather than gunsmithed, except the fore end, which was fitted by experts. That's the only true gunsmithing in it, really. Okay, so those listening on the podcast won't see it, but Trevor is showing that his muzzle pressure is good. But to free float, you can just have a big hole in the end of the stock. You don't have to worry about it anymore. And if that was better, which it isn't, they would have just done that, because it's far easier. And then the entire rifle could have just been assembled by someone given a couple of days training on how to do up the screws in the right order.
What a tremendous amount of common sense. It really is mansplaining, or as you call it, bloke-splaining, to just explain something using basic common sense terms. Well, gee, guys, if free floating actually helped, it would have been free floated already. I mean, geez.
I think part of this comes from heavier barreled sporters, which will shoot better free floated compared to having contact somewhere there shouldn't be contact, and AR-15s and things like that, which are very, very easy to free float, and actually have even the lightest pencil barrel on an AR-15 is pretty stiff, and you're not, because you've got a small hole down it, and you're not putting a particularly taxing cartridge down it with 223.
So let's talk about one more myth before we wrap this up, because we've gone a little long here, but I'm sure no one's going to complain because it's a very interesting change of pace. Why are North Americans convinced that it doesn't matter how you stack your rounds of ammunition to the magazine, rim jam is an inevitability?
Because they've been using commercial ammunition that doesn't have radius rims.
What? What? Commercial ammo isn't made the same as, say, Mark 7?
Funny that.
Wow. So the problem is newly manufactured commercial ammo and not the gun or the clip?
Well, I mean, it's one of those things that this whole rim jam thing had entirely missed the notice of the British Army, the Canadian Army, the Australian Army, the Indian Army, a large number of other armies. It is not in the training manuals because it's basically not a thing with military spec ammunition. Undamaged, fresh military spec ammunition.
Say that again. Undamaged, fresh military spec. Wow.
It's like it's like, yeah, out of spec ammo does not behave as intended. And I got a little extra video out where I've got some 1950s Kynoch 3006, which is short, and under recoil in my M1917 gives feed jams because it moves forward and then the stack won't come up.
Right.
Oh my God, there's something wrong with this system. It won't feed this out of spec ammunition.
Nope. Not a problem.
Feed's fine. Feed's fine
Yeah.
within spec ammunition. Fine,
Exactly. Yeah. Well, Mike, that was fascinating, and there's so many things that we touched upon that could have been their own topic, but there's only so much time. Promise me you'll come back on sometime in
Sure.
the future. That'd be great. I'm a guy once, Mike, that if a gun had wood on it, I had no use for it. But as I've been telling people recently, as a grown ass adult, I reserve the right to grow and develop as an individual, and my taste can mature and develop and change over time. And that's what's happening. There was a time when I said I wouldn't own a 1911 or an SKS, and now I have multiples of each. So I reserve the right to grow and develop and mature as a gun owner. And this stuff now fascinates me, and I always love picking the brain of those who are in the know. And you were certainly that guy. And I thank you very much for coming on. I'm looking forward to having you on again.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I hope it's been interesting to your listeners.
Very much, and it's probably past your bedtime over there at this point in time because you're 5 hours ahead of us. So we will say goodnight, and we'll stay in touch.
Where can people find your stuff?
Thank you, Adriel.
Yes. If you search for Bloke on the Range on YouTube or on Facebook or on Patreon, more importantly, you guys must have Patreon.
Of course we do.
Yeah. Well, I'm on Patreon. You're on Patreon. It's the best way to support content creators you like is to support them on Patreon. And
Awesome.
I'm easily findable just by searching.
Literally just put bloke on the range in the Google machine, and all of your social media will come up. And it's definitely, if you're into milsurps and Enfields and enjoy myth busting and mansplaining, this is definitely the channel for you. So I highly encourage our listeners to check you out.
Oh, thank you very much for the plug. And yes, thanks for having me, and look forward to doing it again sometime.
Wonderful. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Thanks again to Mike, or as I like to call him, Bloke on the Range, for coming on and helping to expand our knowledge base of Lee Enfield rifles and milsurp stuff and holdovers and unders and all kinds of cool stuff. Really interesting guy, Adriel.
Yeah, Switzerland law. We went down all sorts of rabbit holes there.
Typical. And he hadn't listened yet, and I'm glad he didn't, because chances are, had he wouldn't have come on. So I'm glad that he never got around. I told him that Ian was on from Forgotten Weapons, but not to take his word for anything, because what does he know about stuff and things? So you got to watch the video where Ian and Mike are sitting in a hotel room. I think maybe they're at a match or something somewhere. I think it's a hotel room. My God, it could be the man's house. I don't know. Anyway, they're sitting in a room drinking scotch, and they're picking on, they pick on one of Captain Andy and I's favorite, call it economy scotches. And anyway, I thought it was interesting. They're drinking scotch, and talking guns, and dealing with a lot of myths. And look, I've yet to see a bad Bloke on the Range video. You're always going to learn something.
Where, if you wanted to get some really pervasive myths broken, those are the two guys. About milsurps, those are the two guys I'd want in the room. Hands down. It's like having Ben Stoger and Eric Raffel talking about action shooting myths. It's literally that good. So thanks again. Let's jump into our listener feedback. We'll start with the YouTube version. I'm looking to see if there's any actual questions, not comments. Andrew Darcy wanted to know what year Mike came over for the DCRA. I believe it was when he was in university in the late 90s, because he's just turning 40, so it would have been late 90s, early 2000s, if I followed that correctly. Filthy. This is, again, a comment that's worth reading. He's going to have to listen to tomorrow because he's off to visit the Machine Gun Museum. So, Filthy, go puke in your helmet. Mark wants to know if we're going to discuss Tony Clement's question in those comments, and we did. Simon Boom said, any opinions on Tony Clement's question today about the OIC ban over the summer months? So Tracy said, and I quote, "We're not in code red yet. We're standing by to get, What are you going to do anyways? Let's say he does do an order in council. What are you going to do? Nothing. You got to vote in the fall.
Yeah, well, I'll still write or go visit my member of parliament.
They're going to get voted out, but
Yeah, no, that's what I'll do. I'll go tell him, like, pack your bags, or if you no, I'll go see him and say, do you need help to pack? Like, I'll drive to Ottawa, and I'll help you because you're a pretty decent guy. So you just chose the wrong side. Timbit said the screen keeps going gray. Well, that's when Mike was talking.
Yeah, he didn't have a webcam set up. That wasn't just some random like UK sounding guy. It was the real guy. We promise.
Yeah, exactly. So that's it for comments off of YouTube. We'll move into our regular listener feedback now, which is brought to us by where did it go?
I literally just
you put it in the wrong place. You copied and pasted the listener email into. Okay. So our listener feedback is sponsored by Armory DC Gunsmith. Armory DC Gunsmith is a full service gunsmith who specializes in taking Trevor's money on a weekly and monthly basis. My screen just moved because you're copying and pasting. I could have moved up to where that stuff was. Get out of the notes. You're in timeout. Sit down. Don't touch your keyboard. Stop it.
Someone's got to work around here.
I'm trying. He offers hot bluing, parkerizing, and Cerakote finishes, as well as wood refinishing. Check out his online inventory of new and used guns, firearms, accessories, optics, and more at www.dcgunsmith.ca. You can also follow Armory DC Gunsmith on Facebook and on Instagram. And if you do call, write, or whatever, make sure you give the new guy a hard time. He's good people, but give him a hard time. All right, Adriel, how would you like to take the first one, please?
From Jason. Hello, lady and gents. And yes, that includes Trevor. Everyone picks on you in every single email. They always
every single email.
Congrats on making it to episode 303. This is a favorite round for me as I learned to shoot firearms in the Royal Canadian Air Cadets with a Mark IV. Also, a shout out to the 543 Wingham Valiance Squadron. I recently picked up a sporterized wartime Australian Mark III Enfield with the intent of getting into this great platform again. With the cost of commercial ammo being so high for this round, I will be reloading a lot using a manual Lee loader and casting my own 180 grain pure lead 311 bullets at .311. I'm curious to know your recommendations for great plinking and hunting loads and what type of powder you would recommend. I currently have some Hodgdon 414. Also, any general reloading recommendations for someone just starting out in reloading modern ammo? If time allows, I'm curious to know your thoughts on how to make the rifle, or any rifle that matter, even more accurate for long-range shooting beyond 100 yards. Thanks for the input, and cheers on another milestone in Canadian firearms podcasting.
Yeah, awesome. All right, where do we want to start? You want to work backwards or what?
Listen to Bloke on the Range and go watch them. I'm sure he's got some videos on this. In terms of the lead ones, I don't know if I'd do pure lead. If ideally you want a little bit of tin and antimony in there to harden it up.
Yeah.
Pure lead would be way too soft. And if you're going to get them real cooking, you might want to gas check them as well.
You're going to gas check them anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that you can really do a rifle bullet that's going 2,000 plus feet per second without a gas check. So I would.
You can't. You
No.
can go slower. You can go
so
do 1,000 feet a second and then not run a gas check.
I was going to go with Varget because I've got a lot of it, and now that I say that, I'm going to double check the Hodgdon website to make sure Varget is listed here as a recommended powder for 303. But as far as casting, cast. Don't do pure lead. No, you need to have it's got to be an alloy. It's got to be a mixture of lead and tin and whatever else is in there. And
old wheel weights.
Yeah, just melt down old wheel weights.
Yeah, old wheel weight has tin and antimony in it, so it's a bit harder.
Mm-hmm. Curious to know your recommendation for great plinking and hunting loads. Yeah, so I've yet to actually reload the that particular caliber. Captain Andy's loaded a fair amount of 303. So I will be starting by picking his brain to get some info. I've already started to prep brass, and of course I've gone ridiculous with uniforming, primer, pockets, and deburring and flash holes and stuff like that. So 303 British, let's see here. Bullet weight, we're going 180. Nice and heavy. and we'll go with any powder, and let's see what we get. Get data.
You're specifically on a lead bullet?
No, it just gives you the weight of the bullet. So right now I just want to see if I'm talking up my butt here with regards to, so I see 414 on there, CF223, Varget there. Varget is a load, or is a powder that they recommend, and it gives you a velocity of 2,282 feet per second. So that's where I'm going to start. I'm going to start with Varget. As I said, there's also IMR 4064, which is a powder that I use for 223 and 30.6. IMR 4895, another popular one. H335, another popular one. H4895. IMR 3031. These are all powders that I've worked with and are quite popular. So, I would go
with a little bit of a faster one. Like the 3031 sounds about right. 4064 is a little bit slower than 3031. Varget is a little bit medium speed as well. So I would go with something faster, just because you can. You're not going to run it up to the max velocity power anyways, because it's lead. Mm-hmm. So I would just go with something that's cheap and easy to reload for.
So any general reloading recommendations for someone just starting out? Yes. Subscribe to the ultimatereloader.com YouTube page. Get your hands on a copy of the ABCs of reloading. Do lots of research. Only use published data in books like Spear, Lyman, Hodgdon. Only don't get a recipe from somebody that just use published data, because you never know. You don't want them to get lost in translation. Get good equipment, buy once, cry once. I was helping Mini-Me reload 45 the night before the match, and his priming system on his Lee Load All or Pro 1000 or whatever the high, quote unquote, high-end Lee progressive loader is, the primer system was FUBARD. So I was hand priming using the biggest abortion of a Lee hand primer that I've ever seen. And it took 3 times longer than it should have, because I was constantly having to clear stoppages in the hand primer and stuff like that. Like, just don't buy junk, man. You'll spend more time trying to make it work than you will working on your ammo. So if you've never used any of your reloading equipment and you can get a buddy to come over and show you how to do it, a couple of teaching sessions, some mentoring, some tutoring, whatever, just don't go at it yourself, right? Because you don't know what you don't know, and you could be inadvertently making mistakes without realizing it. So try and get some help, and make sure you do lots of reading and research. If time allows, I'm curious to know your thoughts on how to make a rifle, or any rifle for that matter, even more accurate for long range shooting beyond 100.
Free float, of course.
Yeah, free float all of your milsurps. The wood they put on them was unnecessary. And it was more just like
back then.
The wood was there for when you were beating a Nazi in the face and stuff. It was just made it easier to hold the gun when it got covered in Nazi blood. So that's why the wood is there. So first thing, tear all that wood off. And then
barrel back too.
Yes, because that'll stiffen it. So that's important. Don't worry about the crown. Whatever you get with the hacksaw is fine. All right, now Phaedra would. All right, stop it. Stop it.
And a laser.
Stop it. So, if for any rifle for that matter, well, what you do to a modern rifle is not what you do to a milsurp, right? So, if it's a modern rifle, do things like free float the barrel, bed the action. Use quality scope mounting hardware, like a good rail, good rings. Don't buy cheap rings. Buy good quality loophole rings. Buy good glass. Buy a good loophole scope or a vortex scope. A good scope will make a bad rifle shoot better, but a bad scope won't do anything for a good rifle. Don't skimp on the glass. And don't skimp on the quality of the ammunition. The better garbage in, garbage out. If you start off with good stuff and put good ammo in it and get good glass and mount it correctly and mount it with good hardware, all of these things will help that rifle shoot better out past 100. If you're reloading, I get ridiculous about my brass prep. So you could, sort your cases based on head stamp, then sort them based on internal volume, how much water they hold, make them all hold the same amount of volume, or sort them so that they all hold the same amount of volume.
Keep it to the 303. Like he's reloading for a 303 though, a Lee
Yeah,
Enfield.
well, that's fine. Well, you could do that with your Lee Enfield. You could sort your cases based on volume. You could deburr the flat.
Reloading, don't full length resize. I think that's the number one thing I would look for this, because if you full length resize it, and you have generous headspace on it, you will only get 2 or 3 through it.
Well, he's not going to get. It's not that he has generous headspace. It's that it's a loose chamber, so that it's meant to feed military ammo in less than ideal conditions. I know guys have annealed their 303 brass to make it last longer. So there's 2 schools of thought. One says full length resize and trim every time. One says don't trim, or don't full length resize, fire form it and then trim it. There's a couple of different things you can do there, but we beat the excessive headspace thing to death. And just watch your overall length. Make sure that the brass doesn't stretch beyond the max, and keep it trimmed where it's supposed to be. So, and then just prep the brass accordingly. Deburr, chamfer, uniform primer pockets, uniform flash holes, all that stuff. But you're going to chase the dragon, man. At the end of the day, it's an Enfield, and you go do all this work and still shoot 4 inches. So I know Bolivar tried to squeeze every bit of accuracy out of an Enfield forever, but at the end of the day, it's still a Milsurp, it's still an Enfield, and the acceptable. It's a battle rifle. The acceptable measure of accuracy then for that platform is not what we get today out of modern firearms, and you will never get it to shoot like a modern firearm. If you get a 4-inch group, call it good. Move on. Don't try and make it better, because it can't get better.
Well, it's not. It wasn't made for anything more than that. It was made to be man target accurate at 300 max, kind of a thing, and it's fast. It's one of the fastest actions you can get for a bolt action.
I'll disagree with the 300 comment. They had to qualify at greater distances than that, but so I wouldn't call the 300 the max. But at the same time,
to reliably shoot at a man-sized target and hit it,
right? So, and they can, but they had to qualify at distances like 600.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, you got to watch the Canadian guy who's got a YouTube channel from out west about Lee Enfield. So amazingly accurate, like the historical context and explanations, and doing drills that they did, and it's a phenomenal channel. And Bloke on the Range is good. If you just want specific Enfield information, though, what did he say his name was? Bob? I can't remember.
British Muzzleloader.
That's it. British Muzzleloader channel. Yeah. So, all right, let's move on to the one from Spencer. Spencer says, "Hey guys, now that the 300 hoopla is over, I figured I'd get back to my real job, dissing Trevor whenever possible, or not. I have to admit, I liked his choice of the new CZ P10F, although I'm surprised it worked for him with his tiny little hands. I tried it out at a rental range, and that thing is massive. I have large frame Glocks that I can fill the grip on better. Well, I don't think it's as big as a large frame Glock, like a 10 mil or a 45, but
it's huge. It's huge. When you put it in your hand, it's sticking out from the bottom.
The length of the grip, yes, is long, but that doesn't mean the circumference is huge. No, you can't. It's not like a double stack 45 size grip on a Glock. It's not. I bought the P10 Tactical when it came out about a year ago, and I sent along a picture of the Glock 17 overlaying it. The C model is supposedly equivalent to the Glock 19, but it almost matches the 17 in grip length. That's true. The C is an uppercase C, not a lowercase c. Of course, part of that is the extended magazine, but it's still a pretty large gun for a compact model, and the F model makes it look petite. To continue Trevor bashing, I find it hard to believe that he didn't donate his 1022s to Kelly for Maple Seed, and that he, not only did I not donate them, I haven't shipped them yet, so eat a bowl of Peters, and that he took her hard-earned money and spent it on a marine shotgun for the boat he doesn't have, and and which Canadian law won't let him use to defend, even if he did. For shame, sir. For shame.
Oh, I like it, Spencer.
Whatever, man. I'm taking this thing sailing with me when I go with Captain Andy, and there may be pirates in the Bredor Lakes, and if there are, we will be ready. That's about it for now. I'd buy a cool new toy about a week. I did buy a cool new toy about a week back, but haven't had a chance to even test fire it. So I'll save that for a different email. Best wishes, Spencer. If you would like to send a dissing email, you could do so by sending it to slamfireradio@gmail.com. Shout outs. I want to shout out everyone in Kingston who showed up and took note and was heard. Good job, everyone. Thank you for standing up for your rights, doing something for yourselves and for gun owners. That was awesome of you. Adriel, what do you got?
Still another one for Rick for flying out to Edmonton on purpose. Crappy weather on purpose. Yeah. Just so that we could shoot some maple seed and get a CRPS shoot done here and try to kickstart some of that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of flying out, we didn't mention the upcoming event. I don't know if we did or not. My flight got canceled. My trip to the CCFR AGM got canceled.
You got something better to do?
No, I don't. Well, I have something equally awesome to do, and I'm going to get to see some awesome friends that I would have missed out on. So I'm not sad because like I'm trading one amazing gun family for another amazing gun family, so it's all good. But yeah, I was supposed to go to the AGM. But work denied my leave, even though, anyway, it's a long story I don't need to get into, but work denied my leave, so I can't go. It really sucks, but that means that I will be here for the Maple Seed, and I will be here for the 4th annual Ronnie DeGroot Memorial Steel Challenge. So I don't know if we talked about this in upcoming events, did we? No?
Yes, I covered the Ronnie.
You covered it. Okay, perfect. Yeah. Good. So
I didn't cover how you're going to try to beat my Maple Seed score, but you're going to do that, right?
No, I'll be setting up the Steel Challenge while people are maple seeding. It is what it is. Mm-hmm. Someone's got to do the work.
Yep.
Not to mention the fact that I'm at work that day, so I won't even be on the range while they're doing maple seeding. I'll be on the range that evening putting the final touches on the Steel Challenge. So Patreon supporters, we have a new one this week, Bear Smith, and he sponsored us for 303 British. How timely. Thank you, Bear. If you would like to become a Patreon supporter, you could do so by going to patreon.com/Slamfire Radio. If you've not received your patch or whatever else you're entitled to get, harass Adriel and he will get right on that and send it out to you.
Emailed in this week, so I will put 2 letters in the mail.
Awesome. There's a few other ways you can support us, listeners. You can show us some support by visiting our website and then clicking on the links for Cabela's. So you're going to Cabela's anyway, just stop on by and go to Cabela's through our website. And when you do that, it's tracked and we get a little bit of a kickback for your purchase. So you're going to Cabela's anyway, just do it through Slamfire Radio. We would really appreciate it. It helps the show, helps us. Please join one or more of our national firearms associations, such as the CCFR. Check us out on Gun Owners of Canada and give us a like on Facebook. We are up to 2,126 likes. We must have passed the library that Jewel worked at by now.
I hope so.
Oh, God. If we didn't, I'm going to go visit the library. And
the library, like, we don't do the comparison with the library anymore because we've been beating them silly.
Yeah, for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to beat those things down. Next, food banks.
Or an orphanage.
Perfect. Well, if they don't have any friends, they don't have any likes. If they did, they wouldn't be orphans. I'm going to hell.
Do they even call them? Or I don't think I can find it. Wow. Oh yeah, there are orphanages. Cool. Okay. I'll find
still call them that.
The number of likes that we have, so we can compare how we're doing with them.
Perfect. Right on. All right. Well, good night, everybody. We will see you next week at 3:04.
So if you have any comments or questions for the show, please send an email to slamfireradio@gmail.com. Now go grab a gun and shoot something.
When the talking is over, it's time to get a gun.